We have the privilege, just to set up what we want to discuss today, we have the privilege of working with many districts throughout the country, throughout New York State. So we're lucky enough to see how things are manifesting post-COVID. And one of the topic that we want to discuss today is really about teaching and learning. And that's really what it should be about always, right? So teaching and learning in this post-COVID age, and what it actually looks like. What are teachers doing? What are they encountering? What are some of the best practices around that? And we had a really interesting, with one of the folks we're working with, really interesting conversation around some of the challenges and difficulties that they had with the post-COVID and this new, whether it's hybrid, there are a bunch of different ways that people are doing it. A day, B day, a blue day, green day. Like we have all these different ways that people are doing this. But that's what we want to get into for the next 20 minutes or so. What does it look like, and what are the challenges, and some recommendations around best practices for teaching and learning, because this may be, as we all know, we're hoping it's sooner, but it could be later that we get back to normalcy. So, Anthony, you want to start, and then we'll go to Rich?
Sure. I think a little information would go a long way here. And as school districts were attempting to come up with their plans and approval for the state, and that's particularly in New York State, there have been a number of different models. Obviously, there's the hybrid model. Students would come face to face, and then half of them would come face to face, half of them would be performing asynchronous learning. Some schools have done it simultaneously, where a teacher is teaching some students face to face, and then some students, synchronously online. But I think one of the things that's interesting about these different models, and I think requires some research, some inquiry, is its impact on teaching and learning methodology, but also we can't separate its impact on the teacher's work world. And I think that in looking at how schools are trying to meet these needs with during this pandemic, the question that keep coming to mind to me is, of these models, will any of these models exist in the post-pandemic world? Will any of them actually become part of the school culture in terms of teaching and learning, or will they quickly disappear once we can go back to the face-to-face world? Now, there's a lot of implications to that question. One of them being, and you can't separate that either, is teachers' unions. I know that being a former superintendent, having to negotiate with teachers in terms of, this is before the pandemic, in moving to hybrid models, it changes, according to teachers' union, it changes their working conditions. Now, their working conditions have changed. The pandemic and this disruption has changed it. So maybe that will carry over in the post-pandemic world. I don't know, but it's certainly a question that needs to be asked.
Rich?
Well, we talk about the 3 Ps a lot, and with possible, probable, and preferable futures. We're trying to figure out what the probable futures are in this conversation. And you might want to also consider, if not today, but in a future podcast, what we would prefer to happen. I think I heard suggested that we prefer that there be some sort of increased technology milieu. I can't find the right word, that we would like to we would prefer to have once the pandemic has hopefully run its course, if it's got value towards teaching and learning, to come back to Anthony's point. And maybe the question is, how can we leverage to what lemonade we've gotten from these lemons over towards a newer future up the road?
So what we've seen with as far as practices in the classroom, right? And I think we've heard and seen, like Anthony mentioned, a number of different models as far as how instruction is being delivered. One of the models that we recently heard about, it was that synchronous piece. And oddly enough, two themes emerge from no matter what model it is. It's does the technology work for the teachers and the students, and do they know how to use that technology? That was one thing that I think they're catching up on decently quickly. But the bigger one, which I was a little surprised by, maybe I shouldn't have been, being in education as long as we all have, was the management piece and differentiating instruction piece, right? That teachers really have no idea, or very little idea. I should say a low percentage of teachers can do this with any aptitude or expertise. The majority of teachers really don't know how to teach in the online space, and are unable to differentiate instruction to accommodate the online learner. And a third piece is to do that in some cases synchronously, right? So how do we get through that for teachers? Is it just professional development? Is it working with the unions? Is it working with the administration and the leadership? What, in your guys' view, how do we attack that or address that to offset some of those really major deficiencies in how we're trying to educate kids now?
To a man with a hammer, every problem is a nail, and so you already announced the hammer, which would be effective PD. But effective PD presumes that everyone is on the same page in terms of wanting that kind of PD to personally master the skills and processes they need to be able to differentiate. And that might be that may have to come before the chicken comes, or the egg before the chicken kind of metaphor, in order for us to fashion a PD that's truly meets the need of differentiation. Forget even the word of technology for the moment. The issue of truly how to differentiate among students has been one. I don't know if we've ever solved that one, except to go homogeneous when we thought that would be the best way to meet the needs of certain segments of the population, whether it be special education or English language learners and so forth. That's when we've kind of divided it into a homogeneous approach, which I don't advocate, but it seems to be how we feel the easiest, maybe the most effective way to differentiate. And you throw in the T word, the technology premise. I think all of us would agree, would like to think that somehow that technology capacity would enable us to diagnose what the kids need and to slide towards whatever each child needs according to our needs. But I'm not so sure we've got that one, our arms around that one very well.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would add to your comment is the right professional development model. Our profession does not always lend itself to the long-term, well-financed, sustained professional development that's necessary to make those kinds of shifts in teaching and learning. And I think that this pandemic has just exacerbated that, because with all the money that's been spent in technology, and this is clearly your area, Al, with all the money that's been spent in technology and technology professional development and integrating technology in the classroom, this pandemic comes on, and I don't think that teachers were any more ready for it or have benefited from all the money spent on technology. So, that being said, I think that, to look at what you were saying before, the future, let's, just imagine for a minute, there are financial benefits. Like you were asking before, how do we approach this? Well, you do have to approach the union, because it means, a definite change in their working conditions. But that aside, let's look at some of the financial problems that schools deal with. Overcrowding. There's just think about it. Schools are overcrowded. So what do? They go out and they pass multi-million-dollar bonds to increase their spaces. Now, imagine not having to do that when you can actually have a broad hybrid program that allows you to use the same space that you have now and still have effective and meaningful learning. And then take that money that you would have borrowed and put it into things like professional development, or put it into things like ensuring equitable access to what kids need, whether it's computers, whether it's Wi-Fi. Um, I don't want to say that there's so much positive coming out of this COVID, but I certainly think there's opportunity. And my hope is that those opportunities, like you were just saying before with professional development, differentiation, can continue in the post-COVID world. But, going back to Al's question, it's going to mean navigating a lot of different things, including unions and including state departments of education and standardized testing. This is a dynamic issue, and all those pieces need to be accounted for if we can improve and change teaching and learning in the post-COVID world. I think it's just an exciting time to be a part of this profession. I want to say that was a good thing, but the COVID has brought some interesting concepts and questions.
And I loved what you said, and I hadn't thought about this before. If we can get it right, and I want to get to some possible solutions to that as far as sustainable PD, making this so that it's a model that is effective long-term, what that entails, which I think you started to outline. But what I really loved, one of the things I loved that you said was, I think we should have been in the distance learning online space before this, right? We were not.
Yeah.
We were not. This forced us to use educational technology more deeply. This forced us to look at an online model. I know in my own children's district out in Colorado, they do it separately. They do a distance education school, so to speak, within a school, and then they do A Day, B Day for those who want to go face to face. That model now they're hiring new teachers for the distance education piece, but that model is pretty sustainable in a couple of ways because number one, like you said, Anthony, there's out here, it's growing exponentially. We have crowding, you have kids in trailers. We've seen in K-12, trailers are synonymous with K-12 forever, right? There's a trailer to accommodate overflow of students. So it does that piece really well, but it also, in this world where it's a challenge for certain, even small districts to survive, it offers opportunity to consolidate certain districts where they can draw students or have a group of students from neighboring areas, especially I know in New York on the east end of Long Island, you got some real small districts there. And in New York State overall, there's a lot of smaller districts. It allows for that too. It also allows, you're taking some of those students that maybe wouldn't have been in your school, they are now in your region because you're offering a really quality online program. So
Yeah.
I think it does a lot of really nice things, or could do a lot of really nice things if we get the model right, and if instruction is on par for face-to-face and for online, and there's equity in that instruction and that the practices around that.
And I would just venture to say, if the trust is developed and cultivated between the stakeholders who are part of that. What I mean by that is it's going to have implications for the workplace, for teachers, for administrators, but there needs to be a sense of trust and to develop that on both sides, on all sides, and including parents and parental cooperation and community So the model you're talking about, I'm not sure what it looks like, but certainly where it has to start is that they have to really, to what we all talk about in this profession, the stakeholders truly coming together and working together in trust to improve teaching and learning. I think that's a given. The other thing, and before I let Rich talk, the other thing you were talking about, there are examples of models where rural schools, for example, cannot afford nor pay teachers to teach advanced placement classes. Mm-hmm. So another huge benefit to this whole thing could be the rural communities who have not been able to do that. So why could they not synonymously work with those other schools and synchronously learn in those classes, whether it's AP or IB or what have you? So the opportunities are tremendous. And just the last thing I'll say here is that businesses are starting to have learned from this pandemic. They don't really need a lot of brick and mortar buildings anymore. Someone was telling me that Macy's is closing most of its offices and office spaces, and people are going to work remotely. That's a huge disruption to the business and commercial buildings. So, I go back to what you said before, Rich. If something needs to be determined in terms of preferable future, this COVID is the best example of why that's a significant pursuit.
Yeah, just one quick thing to add, as I thought, Rich, I want to hear your thoughts as well. Even the talent, that there's this gap in talent in a lot of areas of the country. There's not enough good teachers that
Exactly.
pull from. I mean, if you have a distance learning school within a school, well, you could pull some of those talented teachers, and they could do everything remotely. So it could up the pool there as well. Just as you were saying that, I was thinking of that too. Rich, thoughts?
Two quick points, and they're kind of connected. But the short answer would be, well, by the way, somebody should write a book about the collective mindset. But a collective mindset, to piggyback off Anthony's point, is the only way you're going to be able to collect everybody around the will and the skill sets that they're going to need to be able to be smart together to refashion what we have been doing for a very long time with modest success for maybe even most students, but not for excellent success for every student. And so now what we're driving at is not just using technology as an add-on or some kind of stopgap emergency thumb in the dike approach, but rather to truly make it part of a school system approach that's, I'm not sure if it's radically different. I'm going to go there for the moment. It's certainly more radically different than it was less than a year ago. And then that would require that leaders co-lead with everyone else who has a vested interest in making this right for our society to, you should pardon the expression, to be creative, to think differently, to be more accepting a point of view. And we're picking, and Anthony's not picking on unions, and I'm not either, but
No.
sometimes you're not doing. I'm not suggesting that you are.
Yeah, no, we aren't. I concerned about their work. Their work.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. They have that's why they're unions. But however, we will have to revisit how we collect around what we really need to have happen. And
So-
that's about a worth sense of recognizing that we're pressed to a place where we didn't expect to be, and we're here now and we'll be here for after the COVID crisis as well. And that preferred future is going to require a new canvas to paint on.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, and I want to wrap up soon, but I'm hearing, all of you know the late great Dr. Joe Rella, and he used to talk about having a flat level conversation. Everybody has a seat at the table. Everybody could talk, and what that did is it instilled trust. Right? Anybody can go to him. Anybody could talk to anything they wanted to. So I think one of the pillars of this working is that flat level conversation, which inspires trust, which also inspires that creativity, right? It shows that support that we're talking about, Anthony, right? We need to have that support from all levels, supportive initiatives. But with that, the other big piece, and to be able to work with all stakeholders, right? But the other big piece I'm hearing is professional development, not just for the sake of PD, but professional development that has longevity and sustainability, meaning that at the beginning of this right now, we all had, excuse my dog barking for a second here, but we all had this really influx of a lot of PD going on. And now it's gone away, right? We had tons and tons of PD, and now it's gone away. So I think in order for this to succeed, we have to have that PD. And I'm going to let you guys talk because my dogs are going crazy here, but we have to have that PD, but it has to be sustainable.
And grounded to a vision that we haven't necessarily really expressed as a whole with a W.
Right. The visioning is still to come.
It is, yeah. So, all right. So, thank you guys for talking some of this through. I think this is to find a solution to this immediately is always a challenge because there are so many different variables, and that goes for change in education overall, right? And this has created different variables, but I think some of the same parameters that we were always used to. Rich, you mentioned differentiating instruction. Have we ever really done that well? Have we ever really given the teachers the tools to adjust and manage their classroom with so many different things coming at them on a sustainable basis? I don't know that we have. And I think COVID has forced the hand of leaders and educators to make sure that they get this right, because students cannot be left out on a ledge, whether it's in the online space or this hybrid model. They can't be left out on a ledge. And I think it's up to us talking it through as educational leaders and others to sort of be inspired by what we're talking about to get solutions and share those solutions, right, with others. So if anybody wants to come on here, the Ed Fix, please come on and discuss it with us. And we're always having guests and love to have guests, but please chime in and chat and go ahead and let us know your thoughts. And if you want to come on as a guest, a parent, a teacher, an educational leader, all perspective is good perspective. So we'd appreciate that. Any closing thoughts, Rich, Anthony?
No, actually, I was going to ask for people to offer their points of view, and you already did. So that's great.
Good. Anthony?
I just think there is so much more to this conversation that I would like to see other people coming on and giving us their thoughts and their views, particularly those in practice right now.
Yes.
And it's like.
Excellent. All right. Thank you as always. It's wonderful being on with you guys.